Misadventures of Incoherent. Listen carefully, Tech Marine. The enemy is fast approaching, and it is just you and I that stand between these Dark Eldar scum and the objective at hand. We must hold.
What should we do? The odds are so against us.
The only thing we can do. We must call an orbital strike. Best to lay waste to the area than allow them to capture this sector.
That will take time. Time we do not have.
Then I shall draw their attention to give you time.
I see. Move quickly, and may the Emperor protect.
No mercy! There, that should do it.
Thawn, order bombardment incoming. Seek shelter. No! Coordinates have punched it. They locked on your position rather than the enemy.
Huh?
Thawn, you must run!
Oh, these pennies.
Little bit of delay there, but whatever. I don't know what was going on, but they'll never know.
We started our last episode off, and we were talking before the intro music came on, and then when after it starts, like the episode truly starts, you're just like, nothing like a bunch of hiccups to really get her going. And I had edited all that out and I didn't realize it. So the episode just starts with us being like, it starts like perfectly. And we're just like, God, that was such a crazy intro. All the issues and all that shit. This is terrible.
The beauty is, like, that's the fun part of editing is, like, we know what happened. They don't get to know what happens. And they get to go, these guys fucking amateurs or what? Yes, we are. And speaking of, we haven't even introduced ourselves. Although I feel like at this point, if you're listening, you should know who we are. But
all 12 of you,
we do apparently sound a little bit alike. So I am one half of the hosting duties. I am Shane, and of course, with me as always is the sexy, voluptuous Drew.
I'm not a mega boy. I'm a mega man.
Oh man. So, oh boy, I think we got an interesting. We're going to take a pause, shall we say, on lore for a little bit. We've done since episode 2, I think, is the last time we talked about gameplay. Everything else has been pretty lore based. So we've gone like 15 episodes.
Has it though?
Look,
has any of it done anything? Because sometimes I wonder.
Yes. Short answer yes with a but. Long answer no with a maybe.
We provide 100% of all Shania Twain related 40K references. That is our claim to fame. I'm gonna make that statement right now.
I don't think anybody can else. Nobody else can make that statement. Nobody else can make that claim. We're the only ones that. Let's go, girls.
Plus, by the time that you're listening to this episode, we have also done the first Full House 40K crossover as well.
Yeah, where are you gonna get that?
Again, I'm gonna. That's a Drew guarantee. I come at me with somebody else who's done that.
Speaking of things, Drew, what's your invulnerable save today? What do you got going?
Kind of an invuln save, kind of a mortal wound here. Mainly, just out of the. I read the Mortarion Primarch book recently, and I won't go into details or
He
spoilers.
said before he went into great detail and spoilers.
No, this is another one of like kind of my weird tangents that I go on about things. In the book, Mortarion is basically set in to make a planet comply.
It seems to be the theme of the Primarch books too. Like, we're gonna get these guys to comply.
Yeah. And the craziest part is during these stories, you have to remember that at this point in time, they're technically the good guys. So Mortarion is pissed off at this planetary empire, essentially. And he's like, we're going for the middle planet. It's the most protected. Every planet around it has satellite laser beams and all this shit. And it's like the worst plan in the world. We're going to go for the heart of it. We're going to take it within 48 hours. And it's going to be a bloodbath. I don't fucking care. Yeah. But the planetary empire that they are assaulting does, in my opinion, it does everything right in their defense. They're not the best. Like, I won't say that they're good, because nobody in this setting is good. But in terms of planetary defense and their strategy, they do everything right. It just, they can't win. It's like the children on the playground where you're like shooting the imaginary guns and they're like, you missed me.
I'm so glad you added imaginary guns.
Oh God. oh, I'm sad now. But it's like when you're playing with your friends, you know, on the playground, and you're like, zap, 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 I got you. And you're like, no, your bullets missed me. I'm Neo in the Matrix. I dodged them. And there's like, no, I shot you. Because I have force field and it protects me. It's like that shit. They're doing everything right. It's like they're what you would essentially, like what we would have if we were in this setting. Like our, you know, their tactics and everything. It's all
sound tactics,
like, yes,
but the plot armor is so thick.
But it's just like because they're fucking space marines,
right?
And they do all this crazy ass shit. Like he brings in like asteroids and rock debris around their ships and uses that to shield them. And then like even like they end up making it to the planet, because of course they do, because there's space marines. And I will say, it goes into, it really shows you how Mortarion doesn't really care. The ends justify the means, no matter how many of his men he has to sacrifice, even though he doesn't technically have to sacrifice them in the way that he does. It's like, you don't have to try to just go for that middle one. Like, don't reach into the beehive to get the honey instantly. You know, we can use smoke and we can calm them. And there's a something to be had in subtlety.
Mortarion's more like shake the shit out of the beehive and put the beehive on your head and then try to lick the honey out. Is that?
Pretty much. You have offended me. We shall get to honey. And then it's like, yeah, man, but those 7 guys on the ground over there are seasoned from bee stings. And then he's just like, yes, but look at how delicious it is when I put it over my Cheerios. And it's like, I guess.
Yeah, I gotta point out the funny fact that we're pointing out that bee stings, which would be a venom, which would be right up like Nurgle's alley. So kind of funny that Mortarion would, we're tying this all together. You just don't know.
It all makes sense. So, but I don't know. Anyways, it's just like they outmaneuver them in the space to space, like the void combat. And then when they make it to the planet, it's just like fucking space marines are just giant mechanical gorilla monsters that are just, and they just like trotting in, and these people are trying to like hit them with artillery shells and hit them with all this shit. And it's like, yeah, they're fucking melting space marines into piles of bone and muscle and molten metal, but they can't stop them. And then it's like they're on you, and then they're just ripping your buddies in half. And then they got this giant tower, and then they just start fucking, like space marines just start fucking climbing it. And they're just like, oh, we gotta get inside there. And they just like rending metal as they're jamming their hands into it. It's like, you can't, it's not fair. Like, he shouldn't have won. He just like out meat grindered them.
Yeah, like.
And then at one point he's just like, I don't know. I guess I am like talking about major parts of this book, but like in typical Mortarion fashion, he's just like, hit him with the napalm, essentially. It's like the 40k equivalent of like super napalm.
What is it? Promethium? Is that what they call it?
Promethium, yeah, it's like their fuel, and I think that they also use that in like their like bombing. I don't know. He just like at one point is just like fucking fire, just hit him with the fire, and
yeah, because it's like he
does horrible things.
Yeah, well, like it seems to me like in my reading so far, as I've never been a lore person. I've been always more into the game, which this is why this episode is gonna feel a little more probably clear to people than our normal ramblings, or my normal ramblings at least. But as I get more into the lore, I'm realizing that like Gulliman is like the guy with the tactics. Every other Primarch doesn't seem to be all that tactful. They're just like, well, I've got these meatheads that are super soldiers and clad in heavy duty armor that protects their even super soldier body. I'm just going to march them forward. I should win. Like eventually I'll win. Like I may lose some, but they're going to lose more, so it's okay. So that's what we're going to go with. Like it just seems like that's everybody's tactic. Like just keep pushing forward. Well, yeah, but couldn't we like I don't know, flank them? Nah. They need to see you coming.
I will say, Magnus and the Thousand Sons, they do their best to try to like keep themselves protected. He uses tactics. Their whole thing though is, it's oh hey everybody, activate your psychic force field. They call them kind shields.
Yeah.
And it's basically like a kinetic force field. But they've gotten themselves into like situations where if their psychic shields fail, then you're standing out in the open there, buddy. Or I don't know. Yeah, I mean, in that book,
don't get me wrong. Raven Guard use a lot of like stealth tactics, and in the we'll talk about it in an upcoming episode.
So do Nart Lords.
The Corvus, yeah, we're going to do a compare and contrast here in our next episode probably. But in that, I mean, the Raven Guard took like 3 planets of this system in 3 hours because of using their tactics. It only goes haywire because Corvus has a hard-on for justice, and if you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, I'll cover it later, but you know.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. The whole point of the book was to just really get you in the mind of how Mortarion operates. But I just felt bad for the empire that he was essentially just destroying, because I'm like, man, they're doing everything right. They're outmaneuvering his ships. They're hitting them the way that you would operate like a land-based war. There's some stuff that they do where I'm like, they're bad as well, but still, I'm like, it's not fair.
Right?
Where's the justice in this?
On a different planet, because that's Corvus's department.
And then, like at the very end, Mortarion's like, was it worth it? Yes, I was right. This is the way to do it. Like this.
Yeah, of course
I'm correct.
Like an echo chamber of one. Like it's just like, yeah, it's fine. I did the right thing.
It's like people are just counting the dead bodies. And he's like, yes, of course. Of course, it was no other way.
There was no other way. This, of course, is the way it had to be.
So that's what I got. Mortarion cheats. The game's stacked up against the horrible intergalactic empire. They can't win. They should have won, but they didn't. So what do you guys think?
Mine's very simple. I've been on a painting binge. You've seen the pictures that I've sent you. And mine is Turbo Dorks Ice to Never. It's a color shift paint. And for the first time, I was like, I want to try. Like, I hate painting force weapons for the Grey Knights, and that's my jam as army. That's my army as Grey Knights. And I can never make. I suck at non-metallic metals. Like, I'm just not good at that look, and I'm not good at like a normal, like the light blue and shift. The water blending, like blending into the darker blues. Not good at that. And I was like, I need to find something that just does what I want a force weapon to look like. And boy, howdy, I found it in Turbo Dorks Ice to Never. I nice black primer, couple coats of it, man. It looks, that fucking blue pops. And I did like some silver edge highlighting. Super happy with the way it turned out. I did it on one of my latest Dread Knights that I just built and painted up. And couldn't be happier with that result. So yeah, look at that. Boom, done with the invulnerable save. That's how it's done. I'm going to dust my hands off in pride. Oh, all right. So we've rambled on long enough about other things. Let's get into what today's episode is going to be about, because we're going to take it back to the game. A friend of ours had actually asked me to do this a while ago. Was he wanted me to talk about metas, and to be fair, I don't really remember all the metas and what they were in particular. I remember some of the ones for my army specifically, and also why they didn't work. Because 5th edition Grey Knights had a Paladin Death Star unit where you just brought in 10 Paladins with an Apothecary, and you deep struck them into the middle of the table and just let them not die because they're very hard to kill. The downfall is it was like almost 1,000 points of models, and we used to have Deep Strike back in those days, and they could Deep Strike off the table and mishap and then get obliterated like mine did. And then when you're in a game and you had a 1,500 point limit and 1,000 of your points just disappeared, kind of makes for a very short, unfun game. High risk, high reward on those metas. But what I actually thought we would talk about, Drew, is more meta chasing. Is it good? We're going to do a pro v con thing. We're going to go over the pros of why meta chasing is good for the hobby. We're going to go over the cons for why I think meta chasing is a hobby. And I think a really good place to start is actually with the Leagues of Votann, because it was one of the first things. It's the first time I've ever seen them do it. They got nerfed day one. Like they were nerfed, not hard, but they were nerfed. And I always thought that was interesting because, in a sense, we were talking a little bit before the show. It's like Games Workshop has an ebb and flow to it. They release a new army. It's super powerful. A few months go by. It gets nerfed. It gets in line with everybody else. New army comes out. It's super powerful. And so the cycle would continue. Votann was the first one that it comes out, it's nerfed. It's gone. Like, well, and so it's an interesting point to start at, I think, like, because it's the absolute counter to everything that we're used to.
Yes, and that one, I just felt like the fans were so like adamant about they're overpowered. There's always leaks of rules. And people were, oh my God. And then Games Workshop on the Warhammer TV did the battle report with Leagues of Votann versus, Guard. I think it was like Imperial Guard. Yeah. And just, obliterated them, which Guard were outdated at that time.
Yeah, you're right.
But that was I just feel like people had been complaining for years that, these codexes come out, they're way overpowered, and then they get nerfed shortly after. And that was the one where they were just like you said, they were banning them at tournaments before they even released. And then there was a day one update like for them.
Right.
It's just, specifically. It was just a mess.
Okay. So it's one of those things we were also talking about before we started recording was like the annoyance of like buying a $60 or $50 codex or whatever, depending on which like version you get. And getting him like, all my rules right here. And then finding out like within 24 hours, you have new rules. Things in your printed book are no longer valid. And you're just like, shit. And they'll be like, well, you got the digital code though, too. So you could just use the digital code and you'll be fine. Like it'll be updated on there. You won't, but it's like we talked about, we're old school players. We're old curmudgeons, I guess you could say. We like having our books. We like tabbing our books, making marks, like, this is where I got to find this, this is where I got to find that. So I think so the pro is good on Games Workshop for being more open to listening to their community. But at the same time, bad on Games Workshop for not even giving this army a chance to show what it could do. Because we didn't see it against current editions at tournaments. Like, we didn't see it go against Tyranids, Sisters of Battle, Dark Eldar. Armies that are arguably, well, Harlequins too, that are dominating like kind of the tournament scene, right? Like those are ones that I've seen pop up a lot as winners of tournaments, but we didn't get a chance. Years ago, when it came to meta chasing, it wasn't as fast paced as it is now, where there isn't back in fourth, fifth, even sixth edition, armies didn't get released at the rate they're getting released now. Like it's not even close. New codexes didn't have timelines. You just had remember when Dark Eldar was having their 5th edition? Remember that, Drew?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
When's it coming out?
Second edition.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, do you guys expect it soon? Maybe. Like now they have a release schedule. Like these 3 books are coming in this month, and these 3 books are coming a month or 2 after that. And it's just like, oh, like this quarter is going to have these 3 books. This quarter is going to have these 3 books, and this quarter is going to have these. It's like, oh, okay, that's a solid plan. But the issue I have is like back in the day when you used to have like a meta chaser, somebody would buy that army, like Eldar, for instance. Old school meta was I'm gonna fuck their names up. The Seer unit, the Seer Council, like on jet bikes with a 2+ invulnerable. Like it was ridiculous, right? But that would be around forever. And on the pro to that was that forced players to adapt, to make their armies work and counter those kind of armies. And I think that was a good thing. And at the con is, of course, if you had an army that was just simply like Dark Eldar, far outdated, there was no count. You were not going to come up with a plan.
Dark Eldar released, they were like a starter set army from 2nd edition, and then they didn't get another update until 5th edition.
Right.
And then it was a complete army revamp, and even after their 5th edition like redo essentially, they had a couple editions where they were just neglected and shoehorned in, and it was bad.
Right.
they've done. I will say this. I find it annoying that, like what you were saying with leagues, a day 1 update, that to me just, okay, did you half-ass the rules? Are you rushing them out there before they're fully tested? Like older editions, yes, it felt like forever sometimes to get a new version of your army or get updated rules. Like the waiting was horrible. Like you said, you just didn't know. You would hear rumors. Thankfully, at the time, the game store that I used to shop at, I would always ask about Dark Eldar rumors, and finally 5th edition, actually, hey, I've been hearing some rumors about Dark Eldar, and then he was like letting me see promotional imagery, and I was able to read. I want to say that the codex, I bought it in October. It was like right around my birthday, if I remember right, and he had it for like a month ahead of time, and I was actually able to go in there and read through the codex and like get an idea what I wanted to buy ahead of time. So that was a nice thing that owner let me do. But yeah, back in the day,
which imagine your irritation if you would have been like, this is what I'm buying. You buy all that stuff, and because you're getting ready for it, and then a day 1 update comes out, and it's like, oh fuck, no, that's not going to work now.
That's the thing. Like I that's one thing I will say about the difference between then and now is updates took forever. Sometimes it felt like, but when you bought a codex, I guess I felt more confident in the longevity of those rules than I do now. I don't know. I like the current edition. I like what they've done to the game. I really love the amount of new releases that we've been getting and updates and things like that. Like that's great, but it makes me somewhat concerned at buying a printed book when they're being like massive FAQs. It seems like,
right,
or
out
multi.
the gate.
Exactly. That's the one thing to me that it's just messy and it looks bad.
And like I said, like especially now that they have to do the seasons too, like Games Workshop's been pushing these seasonal things like chapter approved like rules. And it's like, look, don't get me wrong, I think it's cool. I think it's cool to have these seasons. I think it adds a little bit of flair, especially for the tournament scene, because we're operating under season 2 now. You know, shit, my old army for season 1 will not work in season 2 for whatever reason. That's a good way to keep the meta changing so there isn't always such a dominant force out there.
Yes, that is where it is nice. Back in the day, you had editions that were dominated by a few Death Star setups, where if you go to a tournament, you're seeing the same 4 options. Everybody's bringing like those same armies.
Right. Yeah, it was boring.
Yeah, so it's like back in the day, everybody would complain, "Oh, they need an update. They need an update." Well, they're not going to get it. There's not going to be an update for a year and a half or 2 years. Now we are getting all of these updates fairly quickly, so that's great. It's like we almost live in a time where printed books are just so obsolete in their functionality.
Yeah.
It's
depressing.
Like you said, I am old. I have become a stickler in my ways.
Right.
And I like a printed book. It's what I'm used to since 3rd edition.
I own a phone. That's it. Like, I don't own an iPad. So, like, when you give me a digital code, that's great if I have a tablet, something large enough to read it on. Nothing annoys me more than, let me zoom in on my phone so I can, I'm older, man. My eyes aren't as good. I can still read these books just fine. If I try to do it on my phone, like, I recently was on one of my Grey Knight subs on Facebook, and somebody was asking, "Hey, does anybody have the Grey Knight, digital code?" And I'm like, "Yeah, here you go." And he's like, "Oh, do you want?" Like, no, I don't. I'm never going to use it. I don't need it for anything. Go if you want it and you can utilize it. That go nuts. Save yourself the money and buy yourself a box of Terminators or something instead. Like, so it's just like, that's kind of nice to be able to give to people, but at the same time, I have no use for it. I can't utilize it. I can't. Like, we're fucking old, dude. we're gonna come off sounding like old dickheads in this episode. Back in my day.
But I mean, that's just kind of the reality of the situation. I mean, in my professional life, I've done catalog design, and anymore, I mean, it's very hard. Most companies, in my experience nowadays, everything is print on demand as needed. And part of that is because fewer and fewer people want printed things to look at. Everybody wants digital PDFs, or point me to a website that has the same amount of information. I can look at it on my phone. And it's the simple fact that, if you have 10,000 printed things in a warehouse and you make one update, that's 10,000 pieces of outdated stuff. So, I mean, I feel like, I don't know. I almost wonder if in the next couple of years we may start seeing a bigger push for digital, because even these.
Well, you see it in video games too. Like, it's become a very big thing that I'll just get it digitally. And I've always been a fan of physical media. Like, yes, I stream shit all the time, but at the end of the day, I still like owning a physical copy of whatever it is, because you don't know. Never know when somebody's
game booklets are all online.
Yeah.
It's like you open up the box and there's no booklet or anything like that. And even like the whole the seasons concept of a game. I mean, that is a modern day video game.
Yep. 100%
structure. It's no longer, I need to buy this game, and then next year I'm going to buy the second game, and then the year after that I'm going to buy the third game. I like the idea of seasons because it keeps the content fresh, but it also, I'm not the kind of person that wants to buy a game this year and then have a new sequel like out the door 1 year later. If I like a game, I like the idea of them adding on to that game and giving it the lifespan that it should have, because and so that I like that this edition has been doing that. If you're interested, I love the idea of seasons and it pushing the narrative and giving you options for, you're doing this is a series of battles that takes place in this section, and here's the impact that it has on the lore. The part about that is annoying to me is when I'm going to use the term shoehorn, because we saw this with what was it, War of the Spider, where they basically fit in updated Fabius Bile rules.
Yeah, they just kind of wedged it in there.
Yeah, in that booklet. And I want to say that they ended up giving that after so long, they gave that to everybody for free on the booklet or on the digital edition because I want to say it was like after it was like kind of out of date I believe at some point they did make that for the most part accessible to some extent. But they did that. So if you wanted to play updated Fabius Bile rules, and it would give you like, in this, there are also special armies of renown for Dark Eldar. And it's like, okay, but the Dark Eldar book had just come out. So now you're saying that like if I truly want to have every option available to my army, I have to buy this book as well as an addition. And then
it comes off like a cash grab.
Yes.
You know?
And then the Chaos Space Marine book, that the updated codex that came out a couple months ago, includes all of those War of the Spider sections, and they even updated it a little bit and expanded on it some more. So it's like, okay, was that their way of trying to give Chaos Space Marine players a bone in the interim until they can update the new codex? And then, so like, yeah, it feels cash grabby. It's cheap. I don't like that.
Yeah, it's look, I get we'll play devil's advocate here, and I know they're a business, and that's kind of the business model. But you also charge it. This is crack, okay? You charge a lot of money for your plastic crack, and that's really, I think, where the majority of the money has to come from, is model releases and models being sold. So it would behoove you to a certain extent to either release books that are 100% ready to go, maybe with a minor FAQ later down the road from a few months from now, not day one. That looks bad no matter how you slice it. Even if you try to argue, it was fair, doesn't matter. It looks bad. It looks like you didn't do your due diligence as a company. You threw something out there that wasn't ready. You see video game companies get dragged through the mud when they release a video game that's not polished, that needs a 50 gig download, right? Call of Duty just
day one patch.
Yeah, Call of Duty did that just recent with Modern Warfare 2, where people who bought the physical disc only had like 55 megabytes of data on there and then still had to download 70 gigs worth of data. That's absurd, and they should be ashamed of what they're doing there. Same difference here. You have to fax something day one. You didn't do what you should have done. Your entire job in this company is developing a system and balancing that system and bringing in armies that work within that system.
Before we started recording, I was in the Warhammer, the army building app, and I was looking up like Titans.
Have they made that any better, by the way? Like, I have not used it since I originally subscribed for it, and it was awful. I couldn't use it. It was almost broken. And I was like, I'm done. I unsubscribed and I stopped using it. Have they made it any better?
I haven't tried to build an army on it recently. I like to get in there I have Warhammer TV, so it's included in my subscription.
Yeah.
I get in there a lot of times just to reference other armies' stats and things like that.
Okay.
So, but like not Chaos Knights or Imperial Knights, but the Titans, like the God Machines. I was looking at their stats in Warhammer 40K currently, and it's like they're 3,000 points and they have 120 wounds, and they're toughness 12 and strength 8 or 10, but like their weapon, just like we're starting to add apocalypse units full force into 40K.
Into the base.
And we are really, really pushing what a D6 system can handle. And it's a little ridiculous. To me, it makes me laugh. But I mean, on a 1 to 6, you have like a Kroot or an Imperial Guardsman, and then on like the other spectrum, you have an Imperial Titan.
Yeah.
Like how do you balance those numerically 1 to 6?
You don't.
Like you suddenly have a model with 120 wounds. is it even possible to destroy that model without having like could 3,000 points of not another like Lord of War take that thing down? I don't even know if that's mathematically possible.
I know. You know who can? Keldor Drago. He'll go out and put it down. Get squished. So
stick that wad of gum on your foot is starting to talk.
So we've kind of gone over a little bit of the pros and cons of meta. One of the pros to me is when meta backfires horribly on the person and it's fucking funny, or when people just aren't expecting it. So I'm gonna do a couple examples, and Drew, if you've got some, let me know. But these are three that come to mind, and the very first one is actually widely known in the community, known as the Kroot Conga line. For those uninitiated that don't know what happened in that game, it was a tournament. It was during 5th or 6th edition, I think. And one player was playing Tau, and another player was playing White Scars. And White Scars, at this time, you could withhold all your units in reserve and then deploy them like after your enemy has deployed his whole army. And then you got this major advantage of where you want to place your units. It was very hard to play against because White Scars are a fast attack army. That's their big bread and butter is bikes. So they can maneuver and adjust and place themselves in places where they can do the most damage quickly. The Tau player, however, had 32 Kroot, and they have Scout. Now, Scout allowed you to place yourself anywhere, or Infiltrate, sorry, not Scout. Infiltrate, and it allowed you to place yourself anywhere on the map as long as you were more than 9 inches away from an enemy model. Well, since there was no enemy models on the table, he literally put an entire line of 32 Kroot across the entire back table edge. And since the other guy couldn't deploy his units legally without being closer than 9 inches to the Kroot, he automatically lost the game. Like, hilarious to me. Like, this guy had been pissing people off with his tactic of, I'm going to hold my whole army in the back, and then you get to set up your whole army, and then I get to adjust and position myself at the most advantageous. And this guy goes, yeah, but I can just line up my Kroot in one big long line, right? And the judge is like, yeah, I guess you can. And the guy's like, so I can't place my army now. He's like, nope, you can't. He goes, nope, winner Tau. And it's like, this is at a time when Tau wasn't exactly all that great. They were basically going to chalk that up to another loss for their team tournament, was this guy playing Tau, where they were like, yeah, he's probably not going to last very long against White Scar. And I'm sorry, that's just funny. Like, and there's like this immortalized picture of the dude who won with the Kraut, like giving thumbs up and sticking his tongue out and like, look at this, while the dude who's pissed off in the background with the judge trying to find a rule that saves his ass and they can't find one. And to me, that's when the meta is the best, is when it actually backfires on the person using it. For another instance, when I decided, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to do some meta fun, and I built a Paladin Death Star unit. And I deep struck them in. They hit a wall. Now, all I had, back in the day, when you deep strike and you scattered and you landed somewhere where you couldn't, you would mishap. Now, all you had to do is not roll a 1, and you'd be fine. You'd either be delayed or move somewhere else, or your enemy got to place you, whatever. I could handle 1,000 points worth of models being placed by my enemy somewhere else, maybe not relevant to the battle right now. I'd be okay with that. What I wasn't okay with was rolling a 1 and basically warping my men into a wall and obliterating them into nothingness. And the third time that I can really truly remember as a funny meta moment is this is again back in 5th edition, and it was when the orcs had their truck and they would load up Burna units.
Oh, the Burna truck.
And we were playing a 2v2, and I was teamed up with the guy with the orcs, and then I believe your cousin was teamed up with the guy with Dark Angels. And he brought in a Deathwing Terminator, like Death Star unit. And he plopped him right next to the Burna truck, like very, very excited. He's like, he was so happy and so excited the minute he put those death, like they deep struck, they bullseyed their deep strike. They were right fucking there, right next to that truck. They were so excited because he was just so, we're gonna get in there and we're gonna rip that truck open and all the gooey stuff inside is gonna come out and we're gonna rip all that up and I'm just gonna keep marching across the table. Problem being, trucks were open topped at the time. I think they still are, but I don't think that rule really matters anymore. And that meant all the burners could fire off out of the truck. And since there's
at
10,
the same point,
yes, and that was the trick. They could do it all at the same point. So the guy playing the orcs found literally the most perfect like spot on his blob, which hit like 8 of the 10 guys that he had. And he laid that template down in that same spot 10 times.
Yeah, you basically, since they were firing a flame template weapon, you just maneuver it from any direction out of the truck that you wanted. Yep. You find the optimal spot that hits the most people, and then you say, "Okay, times that by 10. I'm hitting seven people right here. Times it by 10, so that's 70 hits."
Yep.
And you just immediately go, "Wait, what? What happened?"
And then because flame weapons automatically hit, there was no roll to hit. Once whatever the template was hitting, that's who it was hitting. You just moved right to the roll to wound phase.
Yeah.
And if you're rolling 80 fucking dice and you wound on 4s, 40 of those are getting through. Now that 10-man unit has to save out of 40 wounds. I don't care what your save is. You're failing. You're gonna lose guys. And he lost all but one guy, like in that whole thing. And I feel bad because no one told him what was about to happen. We all kept going. Are you sure you want to go there? Oh yeah, dude, it's fine. It's fine. We're like, you're sure? And then when he found out why we were so insistent on asking him if he was sure if he wanted to do it, he like stood in the corner and pouted. He was pissed because like 850 points of his army was just gone. Dude, it's just like it's heartbreaking, but it's also hilarious at the same time. I like watching stuff like that happen to people. It's funny to me.
one meta Death Star took out another meta Death Star.
It's just like the immovable object hits the unstoppable force kind of trope.
And no, like that is almost, there is a Justice style quality to that.
Codex approved.
The thing that I don't like though is if you bring either of those to, like, those were casual games. And yes, they just happened to each have, they were each pitted against another Death Star, crazy formation. But, if they were to just be put tableside against, I don't know, like somebody like you or me who just builds whatever we want.
Right.
I mean,
whatever
for the
sounds
longest
fun
time,
at the time.
Yeah, I mean, when the Dark Eldar had their re-release in 5th edition, their whole revamp, what was it? The Mandrakes were like, don't bring them. They're terrible. They're awful. Like they suck. I thought that they were cool ass models. I always brought them with me.
Right.
I liked them, and
or your grotesque
same thing with
modes, those are always funny.
Yeah, same with grotesques. I mean, they were unwieldy. I had to have a HQ dedicated to just keeping them from going crazy and hurting my own troops. But
or you just put them on a boat and drove them forward, let the boat blow up, and then let them out and have fun.
And then they rip it all apart. Yeah. So I mean, like, that's the stuff that like I don't like, is where it's, oh wow, I think even the truck thing, like that, like
it's
I said,
broken.
There is a justice quality to that. It's like,
yes.
Oh yeah, you want to try and just fucking blank us with your bullshit? Okay, well here you go.
Here's my bullshit right back at you.
Yeah, but like you and I always do a good job of, like, if either of us has questions or we let the other one know. That's the other part that I don't like, is where people try to like, oh, it's just I don't know, they're just a troop choice. Or
and then they got some
just an HQ
specialty rule that, oh wait, no, that's not really what they are. I would have been targeting them sooner had I known what they were capable of doing.
Yeah, it's by keeping critical information hidden and trying to it's like you're not playing the game. You're just kind of like being deceitful.
You're trying to give yourself an advantage by omission.
Exactly. I mean, it'd be like somebody, never playing chess before and
At the
being
same
like,
time, though, I think
what-
when you see a meta army come up to the table and you know they're a meta player, you know what you're getting into, and you're just like, all right, well, I know what I'm gonna face up against, and there's like this moment of clarity in that sense where you're just like, well, all right, so much for casual. Let's try to win this by the numbers, guys. Like it changes the dynamic of the game. Like for me and you, when we play, the dynamic of the game is what funny story is going to come out of this game. There will be a funny moment. We will make fun of it, and it will make us laugh. Like, when's it going to happen? What turn's it going to happen in? And who's it going to involve? Justicare Thawn is our prime example of just the happiest, most joyous moment in one of the most fucked up of scenarios. Just what were the odds of this happening? And this, like, the things that have to happen in order for Thawn to get hit with an oral bombardment right on top of his own head from his own team, just to stand back up again to get hit by a Darklands and put right back down. Like, every time I think about that, it makes me laugh because it's just like, that's a fun moment. This is why I'm still like, even after going over this and like talking about the meta and the pros and cons of it, I'm still against meta chasing. I don't like it, but that's because I'm the casual guy. Like, I like a casual game. I like a pick-me-up game. And even when we're playing like maybe more of a narrative campaign, like we're talking about finally getting going here soon, doing a crusade. To me, it's like, man, why would I want to ruin the magic that's about to happen with something garbage, like with a meta style army? Like, even if I'm playing a meta army, like, I'm going to be playing Votann. And are they meta? I don't know yet. I haven't really seen too many tournaments with them yet. And are they dominating? Are they not dominating? I don't know. But at the same time, I don't care. Like, again, when I play my Votann, I'm going to be looking for, how can I make this fun? How can I make this funny? What unit should I bring that might enhance my ability to have a good laugh at some insane mishap that might happen on either side of the table? So for me, it's always been, when it comes to the game, it's always, where am I going to have the most fun? And I don't have fun playing the meta, if that makes sense to anybody. I know people can have fun playing the meta, and I know there's tournament players that might listen to this and be like, oh, you guys are dicks. It's not our case. I'm not telling you can't do it. I'm not telling you not to do it. But I would ask you to not be a dick about it. Like, you brought a meta army, you brought the meta choice of the meta army. Don't pee in my Wheaties on top of it and like insult me by being like, yeah, look at this, and I'm gonna do this, and like talk down to me. Like, have fun with the game. And if I blank one of your units by like some grace of luck, don't get like super butthurt that you lost some guys. Like, some guys treat it like they have lost the game, even though they're not losing the game at all, but because they lost X unit, the game's over. I don't want to play. I lost 1,000 points worth of Paladins. I had 500 points of Grey Knights left. If you know anything about Grey Knights, 500 points, not a lot of points for Grey Knights. I still played out the game. I wasn't super effective, but I still played the game out. You got to still play the game. Drew, your thoughts? Have you done?
I'll let you finish. Yeah, no, I mean, that's my biggest. It's something that, for the most part, hasn't affected me very, very much. Just because we play in our small group, we're all casual players. I mean, you and I play most with you. Right. For a while now. That's what it's been. And we play for fun.
And I keep wanting to go up to my local game room and play some pick-me-up games, but I'm absolutely terrified.
Yeah, I mean, it just comes down to like the games that we've played against people that are hyper competitive. I mean, I can go to the playground near me and I can dunk on a bunch of kindergartners. But I mean, what? I won't get much satisfaction. Yeah, like, who wants to play dodgeball, and then it's like I'm just spiking it on their faces and stuff. They're not having fun.
I shouldn't be having fun, but I am.
Do I get much satisfaction out of that? Like, it's just one of those things where, yeah, you're almost guaranteed a win.
Guaranteed victory.
If that's what you want, okay. I've said this before, I'll say it again. This game is an investment in time. It's an investment in money. It takes up physical space.
A lot of it.
Yes, I play for fun. I hope that it makes me laugh when we play. Like it's entertainment. It's a game.
Yep. As long as there's one moment of oh shit, did you see that?
Yeah. So part of me, with like the codex releases and everything, I like that they're doing more to update stuff in real time. I mean, part of me even likes the fact that they get everybody so hyped up about these army releases.
Right.
Maybe it's for partially the wrong reasons. I don't like the idea of somebody just buying an army because they know it's going to be hyper competitive for X amount of time before it gets, that's what everybody always says. Oh, you got to buy the army right away, and then you play it and you're hyper competitive until they nerf it, and then they're going to nerf the hell out of it, and then it's garbage. I have yet to see an army that has been completely ruined by rule updates. It might not be as over the top as it was when it first released, but I don't know. In my experience,
I mean, I've
nowadays,
been accused of meta chasing just playing my Grey Knights. I played Grey Knights since 3rd edition. Like, I played Daemon Hunters. Like, don't call me a meta chaser because I'm buying the next iteration of my army's book. I like Grey Knights. I like Grey Knights for their aesthetic. I always have. Do they get cool rules every now and then? Yeah, sure. But they're still a mid-range, at best, and melee army. Like, they don't have that long range of shooting. They are mid-grade at best. Even when they were considered meta with the Paladins in 5th edition, they still weren't dominating tournaments like people thought they were. And they get a lot of shit because their 5th edition codex is written by Matt Ward. So like, Matt Ward, it's like, yeah, he wrote some pretty crazy rules. I'm not gonna lie, but you know what? He did a couple books, and they all got it. And none of those armies really were top tier tournament winners for very long, if at all. So I think sometimes it's some of these meta players that chase the meta want their arm once they've like settled on a meta that's really dominant, like super dominant. They're like, I don't want this to ever change. I want this to stay the way it is. This is perfect to me. And then something else comes along and they're like, oh no, this isn't fair. This isn't right. And it's like, oh shit. Your army's going to start losing now. So I got it. This has nothing to do with you chasing meta. It's about you wanting to be number one. And we all probably know a guy like that. Every group has a guy that does it. I'm sure of that. It's not a unique problem to any one group. And to those people I say, I don't care that you're going to do that. What I ask you to do is when you come to play the casual games, don't bring the army that's meant to win tournaments. Try something different for a change. Like, you could stick with that army. If you're a Tyranid player right now and your meta is big monsters with a few troop choices and it's winning you tournaments, great. But when you come to my house and play, change it up. Bring some crazy shit. Bring shit you've never done before. Try out something different. See if you might have fun with the army.
Relax.
Yeah, relax, man. Just relax, man. Come on, man. You gotta relax, man.
Yeah. That also, going back to your point where you said, you were getting hassled about, you play Grey Knights, blah, blah, blah. And it's just, for you've always had a general love of the army and you've always played them. I remember when the Dark Eldar were revamped in 5th edition and me going in like day one and just stocking up on them because I had been wanting to play Dark Eldar since 3rd edition, and I just kept getting told,
don't do it.
No, you don't want to play them. You don't want to play them. They're outdated. Their models are all metal. They're garbage. You won't have any fun. They'll get an update. Trust me, hold off. They'll get an update, and you want to buy them when they do the update. The owner of the game store that I used to go to always said that. So I was like, all right. So I bounced between armies that were fun but weren't the army I wanted. Finally, Dark Eldar got their redo. Bought the whole line like day one. And I remember people being in there, oh, we got another person jumping to Dark Eldar, of course. Well, yeah, of course they're buying Dark,
Well, same thing. I bought Votann, and I got a little bit of flack for buying Votann. And it's just like, oh, they're going to be like, you knew, like, I was on that army when I first started seeing the models come out. I'm an aesthetic guy. I always have been. I didn't know any rules for Votann. I looked at their models and like, cool. Little people miners. like that's awesome. Let me get those guys. I want that.
Little people miners.
I know it sounds awful when you say it out loud. Didn't think that one through.
But yeah, it creates that weird false narrative that, because you're buying the new army, then you must be only interested in the idea that they're going to be super strong. And it's like, that's not a fair assumption to make. You don't know that. They could have been a huge Squats fan. They could just think that they're cool. I mean, they have an aesthetic that's somewhat similar to like StarCraft, Space Marines. Yes. They have a really cool, unique look to them. And somebody could just be into that. World Eaters are coming out. It's awesome.
And they're getting a whole new range revamp of models.
Well, and a lot of people are complaining that it's a small release. I agree that, hey, we're getting an Angron Demon Primarch model, so that's awesome.
I love the Angron. You're getting new Zerkers. You got those new dudes riding the fucking Juggernaut. Like, there's some cool shit in there. Like,
there is.
Grey Knights doesn't have a whole lot of model lineup. But if they came out tomorrow and came up with like some revamped models, goddamn skip you, I'm buying them. Like,
yeah, and what's nice is they're going to be out there. They're an official army. They won't be going away anytime soon, and they're going to get an annual update now. And from what we've seen in the past, as every time that there's a new update to an army, they usually get, for the most part, like a new model or a updated version of an old model. I was pretty upset with the Dark Eldar. The model release was the Lilith, the updated plastic Lilith model.
Mm-hmm.
It was okay. I mean, I don't know. It's like, boy, oh boy, does it seem like time moves so much faster as you get older. But I was like, we just got a new Lilith model back in 5th edition, and then I have to tell myself that we're in 9th edition.
Right, yeah.
It's like,
oh, no.
All right.
Going back to that we're old thing.
Yeah, but I mean, they already had a mold of her. I would have liked to have seen a model for Fecht or one of the other Archons or named characters that was in the previous editions of the codex, like their codex. Like 5th edition had a ton of named characters. They were awesome. And they did that thing in, like, what was it, 7th edition, where if you didn't have if the army didn't have a model, it was not in the codex. You remember when they did something like that?
Yeah,
where it was like they did like a big purge of like, well, they don't have a
like
model.
Old One Eye got eliminated for Tyranids, and
and they're like, everybody was like talking about that, like, well, based on the way that they're going, if it doesn't have a model, then that's not going to be in there. And so Dark Eldar lost a shit ton of HQs because of that. They're starting to bring that stuff back. Like, I believe you can run Old One Eye with Tyranids now again. So they've gotten better about it, but like, that was my biggest. I'm ranting now about Dark Eldar.
No, you're good. That's what we do here.
But that was like one of my complaints was, it's awesome that they're updating everything.
But okay, so
they're keeping it fresh.
That actually brings up a point, though. When you do meta chase, it does drive sales, and sales result in more money, and more money means they can do bigger model lineups the next time around. So, and then they can also gauge
Well, they're a business. They're going to spend the money where they make the money.
Right. But if we could show them, oh, there's interest in this, like when World Eaters come out and there's this huge interest in it from the World Eaters crew, what's to say they don't go, okay, let's give them an Iron Warriors style codex supplement for Chaos. You know? That's like,
yeah.
So for me, that's like a positive. Like it can be a positive. I'm still against it, but there are positives to it.
The way that their current business model is set up, that there are some cool things about it. I like the fact that the
current business model is how do we suck off the Space Marines more?
I mean, this edition, we've seen how many new armies. I mean, we got leagues. We're getting World Eaters. Have there been any other?
Was Sisters
Chaos
of Battle?
Knights?
Sisters of Battle?
Chaos Knights were already around. What?
Sisters of Battle. They were not around. Were they around 8th edition? I think they were new to 9th edition, I thought. They had existed kind of as like an offshoot thing, but they never had a full-fledged codex like they do now. That might have been 8th edition, but
I thought they did. I thought Sisters did have a codex way back in like 2nd or 3rd.
Yeah, like way back in the day. But they have been kind of sidelined since then, and they got a whole new range, and they sold like gangbusters, and I think that's really awesome. And I like Sisters of Battle. I think they're a cool army. I like the way they play.
But back in the day, like Plastic Sisters, like when are we going to get Plastic Sisters of Battle? That was like a long running gag question. Yeah. Where, and then Games Workshop would that'd be really nice. Or Squats. Hey,
when they fucked with us on April 1st and launched the fucking Squats announcement, and everybody's like, yeah, bullshit. You've done this before. You've cried wolf before and told us we were going to get our Squats back. And then they're like, no, seriously, we're really doing it this time. And everybody's like, oh shit, are you? This is day 2. You can't April Fool's us again. Like it's past April Fool's Day, and they kept going with it. And people were like, oh my God, this is for real. They're really coming back. And Vashtar, the newest demon thing that's coming up. I didn't know this, but apparently he's tied to the Dark Mechanicum, which could indicate that we might be getting a Dark Mechanicum army, which would be fucking awesome. Like
that right there. That is a wholly new character that they have just created.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love his aesthetic. I like the idea of him being
he's a robot demon.
Yeah. He's like a demigod. He's like,
he's trying to ascend to true godhood.
But he's essentially the Chaos 40K arms dealer.
Yeah.
for the forces of Chaos in general. He's like a weird biomechanical Nicolas Cage from the movie Lord of War. And I like it.
I was gonna go with Turk from Daredevil, but man, Turk got you, baby. What you need.
That's another army that.
And personally, I'm all for brand new armies. I'm for Dark Mechanicum. I am totally down for some fucking Xenos crazy shit coming out. I would love, I know that people might think that might oversaturate. I don't think that. I do not believe that for a second. I think that'll actually help further balance the game out. Think about how much more balanced the game feels now than it did back in 4th edition when we played. There was again, because that has a lot to do with codexes being released more often, facts being updated more regularly. They seem more dedicated to that. And that does help out because back in 4th edition, you get a fac every 6 months or so. And it'd be like a massive fac. It'd be for all the armies. And you'd have to cipher out which rule is yours and which wasn't. And there's if you're not playing these guys and you're as long as you're not playing against them and you're not playing playing with them, everybody's going to have a good time. But if somebody's playing this army, X army here, no one's having a good time in that gameplay. You're just going to lose and you're going to move on to the next game. Now it's hey, they've got, oh man, if Dark Mechanicum come out, they got, oh man, they got a Dark Mechanicum army. Well, yeah, that works good against A, B, and C, but D, E, and F armies, they're no good against. There's a lot of counters in these armies. So you can't walk into a tournament and say, I've got the meta army, I'm going to win it all. Because there's been enough balancing that keeps everything even. It doesn't, just because you see that high, like Tyranids I see winning a lot right now. But just because I see a Tyranid army on the map doesn't mean it's a surefire win. Like that, not to mention the way the game plays a lot more, which is a whole other, like, that's a whole subsect of, that's another episode in and of itself that we could go over one day, is the difference between how 4th edition worked with objectives and points versus now. There's so many more ways to win and so many more ways to earn points. Like, you're not just, like, it's not just about sitting on objectives. There's other things you can do, actions you can take that can help generate and earn you points and make the game competitive, at least. So I don't know, wait and see, I guess. I'm rambling again. I look, no one's ever going to convince me that meta chasing is good. I don't buy into it. I know why it exists. I know why Games Workshops lets it exist.
Well, I mean, every game has it.
Yeah.
Any game that's got a competitive.
Watch Call of Duty games. Oh, you got to run this weapon with this kit, and you'll kill everyone every time.
Yeah, it's card games, Magic the Gathering, or Pokemon even has one.
Yep. It's always,
it's just it's an aspect of games like this. Tournaments make them money.
I guess
so they're going to run tournaments. People like tournaments. At the end of the day, though, all metas actually do is prove that they're not doing their due diligence of balance. Right? I mean, if any one army they release has a severe advantage and is winning, this goes. I mean, like Magic and Pokemon goes across the boards. Then you're not really doing your best job to balance it. I mean, I will also argue that any asymmetrical game, whether it's a tabletop, a card game, a video game, it's damn near impossible to have perfect balance.
Oh,
look at fighting games. I mean, Smash Brothers, like, they finally announced, like, we're done updating the game at this point, because it's like you make one update and you tweak this character's speed by 2%, and this person's hitbox gets shaved by 5 pixels, and this move does 15 damage less. To somebody like me, I play Pac-Man. You want to know why? Because I like Pac-Man. Is he competitive? No. In terms of, like, the competitive tier lists, I think he's, like, pretty bad. He's like an F student. He's failing. But so that stuff's completely lost.
He's easily scared too. You just got to sneak up behind him, and he, like, folds over and on himself. So that's that's a Pac-Man joke.
Stop, man! You're bending your mouth's all split open, man. Just keep going. Oh, he's licking his own heels. But yeah, it's like, so it's same thing with this. It's like there's never going to be a perfect balance. So I'm willing to forgive that to a point.
Right,
like, as long as they're, I don't like the idea of businesses abusing the balance of their game's ecosystem to hawk additional sales. Like, the game, I think that armies do that themselves just by being unique. And in a perfect world, that would be how it is. Everybody's buying an army because they think that they look really cool, or they like the lore behind them, or they have researched the style of play, and they're making an informed decision that's more meaningful than just, hey, this will win me some games.
Yeah.
That's it. In Drew's dream world, that's like, because that's how I am. That's how I make my decisions and everything. Am I going to just genuinely enjoy this? Yeah, probably. Okay, cool. Well, then I'm in. I'm going to give it a go. Then yeah, that's just.
I think we're both in agreement that the meta is both necessary and we hate it.
I mean, it's lost on us.
It is. I mean, we're not those guys. Like, we're probably not the best guys. Like, I'm trying to give it a fair shake. I guess, like, I've been inspired by listening to a different podcast where they try to go over things. It's with Kyle Kinane and Shane Torres. No Accounting for Taste is the name of the podcast. I really enjoy it because they literally try to take things that people hate and try to go over the good in it. And recently they did the Kardashians, and that bombed horribly for them. They could not find any good. But here we are. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to try to like take a best foot forward approach to why it exists and why it's necessary and the like. And I feel like I've given it a fair shake. I personally don't like it, but I also don't want nobody else to be able to do it. Like if you want to do it, and if that's how you want to enjoy the game, have at it. Just don't come over to my house.
Well, yeah, I mean that's
go play at a tournament.
I mean, we both have said it before. You know, it doesn't really affect us in the grand scheme because we play in a very isolated ecosystem.
Right.
I don't know.
I'm broken.
No, I mean, I don't know. Every game has it. Every game system deals with it. I like the game. I feel like for all its ups and downs,
always enjoyable.
I always have a good time. The 40K universe is just one of those worlds where I like to just live in it. I wouldn't literally want to live in it, but like I love.
Fuck no, especially after reading some of these novels.
Yeah, I love reading about it.
I'd be a servitor.
I love experiencing it, like in any way I can, whether it's an audiobook, reading it, watching the shows, playing the game. The humor that's baked into it, and then the fact that it's so horrific to the point of excess to a level that then makes it funny. And then just the ridiculous situations that can come up, you know, I will always love it. I will always have a soft spot in my heart for it. So you know, if you like chasing meta and doing all that, I am happy that there are outlets for people like that in this, you know, even though I don't want to play against those people, I'm happy that they have a spot in the hobby.
Yes.
I do enjoy, though, every now and then going and like reading like people that do like the math hammer where they calculate different things. That to me is fascinating. I was reading earlier today actually about how many bolter shots would it take in a game to take out like a war titan. And they broke it down and it was something like it would take you with the maximum number of space marines that you could fit, like all firing at half at rapid fire, half not at rapid fire. It was like best case scenarios in a game, and it was like it's going to take you like 3,000 average turns or something like that, or 1,500 turns or something like that, like for Space Marines firing bolters to take out like 120 wound Titan.
That's
silly.
Yeah,
and I was like, it's just, you know, it's complete lunacy at that point, but I loved it. I was like, oh, this is interesting to me. Like there's a morbid curiosity of this complete one-sided war here, and like, but that's not like that scenario is not hyper competitive. Right. That is just funny. That sounds like something that you and I would do.
Yeah, no, I would definitely probably break down those numbers just for the sheer hilarity of like figuring it out.
So there are even like with that, like I do like it when like the people that do like the math hammer and they calculate this stuff out to where
I'd even like to go back and refigure out what the chances of my Vindicare taking out that brass scorpion with one shot in that one game was.
The chances were once in a lifetime, and it happened.
I know. So I think we've thoroughly dissected the subject. I hope that appeases the one person when this episode airs. Drew, normally we end with a final thought. I have one, but I didn't know if you had one either. Like, if you have one, get it out now, because mine's going to be kind of angry.
Go for it. We normally just end with one.
Okay, so I don't know which of my 7 followers works at Games Workshop in their PR department, but you can rightly go fuck yourself with the how many spines could Spine Grinder grind if Spine Grinder could grind spines, because I said that shit 4 fucking episodes ago about Warsmiths, and you stole my shit. Fuck you. I'm so irritated by that. You have no idea that I would see that and be like, Drew, this took me back to our Gladiator game when we were thinking about making our writing the rules for our own board game, and then I found that fucking board game with almost identical. People are fucking listening to us, man. CIA, NSA, I don't know who, but they are fucking listening to us and they're stealing our shit. And I'm fucking tired of it.
I have a doodle I did for a pirate ship game, and it had these like cardboard chambers. It was almost like a giant like grid box on the inside. And I had this idea of like you flipping cannonball tokens. And long story short, the other day saw a Kickstarter for a game with a ship shaped like my little sketch, and you flick tokens into the center of it.
Oh my god!
And it's like this was a doodle that I have like in a notebook from like years ago, and I don't know if I don't know if we're just tapped into the zeitgeist.
I'm telling you,
the societal zeitgeist, and or
I was so mad at that picture, man.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but like. Yeah, when you said that, I was like, "Oh shit!"
I'm fucking over it, man. Fuck you, whoever you are at Games Workshop. But that's a good question. I'm just gonna reword it for something else because I can make it funny. Fuck you. I hate you. Piece of shit. That's it. That's the podcast. You guys can go fuck yourselves.